Readers familiar with the original Journey to the West know that the story, centered on seeking scriptures, did not begin with Tang Seng wanting to go on the journey, but rather with Buddha wanting to spread the teachings. At the Olambana festival, Buddha announced his plan to transmit the newly developed product, Mahayana Buddhism, to the eastern land of the Tang dynasty. Since Tang Seng seeking scriptures was passive and Buddha spreading teachings was active, how did this shift happen? The original text from chapter 8, Buddha creates scriptures for the Western paradise. Guanyan is sent to Chang'an to chapter 12. Zhuanzang establishes the Great Assembly. Guanyan appears as a golden cicada, explains this transition. This can also be understood as the process of establishing a fund called the Western Heaven Scripture Seeking Joint Fund. This video is precisely about revealing how this fund was initiated and established. 1. Background of the fund's establishment. The profit model of Western Heaven Buddhism. We know that neither Taoist, immortals, nor Buddhist gods and bodhisattvas engage in production. Their livelihood comes entirely from the offerings of humans. Unlike demons, who rely on robbery and sometimes eat humans, gods and bodhisattvas do not perform such low-level tasks. For example, when Pigsy was a demon, he would catch a person when hungry and eat them. Similarly, Sun Wukong would sometimes turn into a woman to deceive people, capturing them and making dried meat. But the gods in heaven do not engage in such things. They win people over with their virtue. Since the gods and Buddhas in heaven primarily receive offerings from humans through rain and guiding spirits, and since rain is mostly controlled by the heavenly court, the only way for Western heaven to receive offerings from humans is through guiding spirits. First, let's analyze the operating or profit model of the Western Heaven's Holy Mountain, located in the Western Bull Heaven continent. As a religion, Buddhism's operational model is essentially a form of crowdfunding. It uses religious teachings as a foundation to raise funds, spread its doctrine, and grow its followers. In return, the followers contribute money, goods, and other resources to support the teachings, build temples, and maintain the faith. During disasters or famines, temples also serve as shelters for the believers, which further expands the influence of the doctrine. The income of Western Heaven comes from the continuous offerings from its followers. According to historical records, Buddha is the true pioneer of this religious crowdfunding model. In this model, the key to increasing religious offerings is to grow the number of followers. Only by doing so can higher profits and revenues be achieved. Buddha's goal is simple: to have more people believe in and worship him, and then burn incense and offer donations. How did this model operate in the birthplace of Buddhism, the Western New Her continent? The answer is given in chapter 98 of Journey to the West. Buddha himself told Tang Seng and his disciples that the monks once recited the Three Treasures Sutra for the Zhao family in the city of Shaowei to ensure the safety of the living and the salvation of the dead, but they only received 3 pecks and 3 liters of rice gold as payment. By today's standards, 3 pecks and 3 liters of rice gold weigh 636.9 kilograms, equivalent to over $20 million. Buddha also said they had sold it too cheaply, leaving little for future generations to use. It is clear that Western Heaven aims to create huge commercial profits by introducing the newly released Mahayana Buddhist scriptures. Shui Kingdom is just a small country in the Western New Her continent, and no matter how much the price of the scriptures increases in Ling Mountain, the market space is limited, and it is easy to face a situation where there is price without demand. To further expand profits, new markets must be developed, and more followers gained. If the scriptures can be spread to the great kingdom of the eastern land, the Tang dynasty, then the profits from these scriptures would at least double. The internal management system of Western Heaven. Readers of Journey to the West will notice that before Buddha initiated the journey for scriptures, Buddhism already existed in the eastern land of the Tang dynasty. This is the Hinayana Buddhism that Tang Seng recited before his journey. Since the Tang dynasty already had its own form of Buddhism, why did Buddha still need to transmit the teachings to the East? The subtlety here lies in Buddha's plan to replace the Hinayana Buddhism of the East with his own Mahayana Buddhism. Those familiar with Buddhist history know that an important distinction between Hinayana and Mahayana Buddhism is that Mahayana sees Buddha as an all-knowing and all-powerful being, while Hinayana regards him merely as a teacher. Faced with this special internal management system, if Buddha wants to solidify his position, he must take appropriate actions. This action was to personally initiate the journey for scriptures and assign Tang Seng as the leader. Through this open and just strategy, Buddha could expand Buddhism's influence outwardly, while internally replacing the prevailing Hinayana with his own teachings, Mahayana Buddhism, and at the same time promoting key members of the scripture-seeking group to strengthen his own faction. In fact, after the success of the scripture-seeking journey, members of the team were quickly promoted to become Buddha level. Tong Seng, and Sun Wukong. 1 became Bodhisattva level, Pixie, and 2 became Arhats level, Sha Sang, and White Dragon Horse. These individuals, if considered by faction, would naturally belong to Buddha's camp. These promotions were achieved through the journey for scriptures, which served both public and private interests, highlighting Buddha's political and management skills. Buddha develops a new product, Mahayana Buddhism. Since Buddha needed to achieve both of these goals, a new product had to be developed as a vehicle for this. Only a new product could capture people's attention to the greatest extent. Therefore, Buddha developed a new product. On July 15th of the 13th year of the Zhengquan era, in the autumn, Buddha held the third Ilambana festival at Liang Temple, where he gathered all the Buddhas, Arhats, Bodhisattvas, Vajras, monks, and nuns from the Western heaven. At this conference, Buddha publicly announced that he had developed a new high-tech product, Mahayana Buddhism, with the medium for its transmission being the 3 sutras. The 3 sutras includes 1 volume each of the law, theory, and scripture, with each having functions to discuss the heavens, explain the earth, and guide the spirits. In total, there are 35 sections and 15,144 scrolls. These scriptures are the path to true cultivation and the gateway to righteousness, far surpassing the Hinayana teachings popular in the Tang dynasty, which were unable to guide the departed to heaven. After explaining the advantages of this product, Buddha publicly announced his plan to launch a fund to spread this new product to the Eastern Temps dynasty. The Kingdom of India, where Ling Mountain is located, does not revere Buddhism, so Buddha had to expand into foreign markets. One important reason Buddha needed to spread Buddhism to the Tang dynasty was that the emperor of the Kingdom of India, where Ling Mountain is located, did not revere Buddhism. Therefore, Buddha had to devise a strategy to expand into overseas markets. This can be seen from 2 key events. When the scripture-seeking group arrived in the Kingdom of India, they learned from local officials that the kingdom had been established for over 500 years. Since the time of its founding emperor, the current emperor, Emperor Yi, was fond of mountains and flowers, and even took the real monk, Tang Seng, as his son-in-law, composing poetry with him, but never discussing Buddhism. This shows that the current emperor of India does not respect Buddhism. It can be inferred that the rulers of the Kingdom of India, since its founding, have not been particularly devoted to Buddhism and have been difficult to influence. Therefore, from the beginning of the kingdom's establishment, Buddha planned to give up on it and seek new markets elsewhere. Buddha gave up on the local market in India, which can also be inferred from the travel permit documents. In the final chapters of Journey to the West, when Tang Seng returns from his journey, he presents the travel permit to Emperor Taizong, and the text states, the travel document bore the seals of Baoxiang country, Wujigu, Cheki country, Ziliang woman country, Jisai country, Juji country, Shizuo country, Bekshu country, Mi country. It also had seals from Fangxin County, Yuhua province, and Jinping prefecture. After reading it, Emperor Taizong accepted it. Strangely, there are 2 mysteries. 1. The travel permit has the seal of Shizuo country, yet everyone knows that its people were eaten by the giant bird. So who stamped this seal? Second, there is no seal from the Kingdom of India. When they were in the Kingdom of India, the traveler thanked them and instructed Sha Seng to take out the travel permit. The king looked at it, stamped it with the seal, wrote some decorative characters, and then took 10 gold ingots and 20 pieces of silver, offering a formal greeting. Clearly, the seal was applied, so why is it missing? To revisit this, in chapter 98, when Tang Seng and his disciples meet Buddha, the scene is described. The 4 disciples knelt before Buddha, paid respects, and after each had performed the required rituals, they presented the travel permit. Buddha carefully examined it and passed it back to Tang Seng. In chapter 98, the travel permit passes through Buddha's hands, and clearly, Buddha took the opportunity to make changes. Why did Buddha add 1 country and remove another? The reason is that Buddha wanted Emperor Taizong to know about Shizuo country, but not about the Kingdom of India. The reason for adding Shizuo country was to let Emperor Taizong know about it, and to make the people of the southern continent aware of its existence. In other words, Shizuo country was soon going to be rebuilt. And who would lead the reconstruction? Of course, it would be Buddha. This would allow him to easily gather followers from this country. It's possible that he might even establish trade relations with the Tang dynasty, which followed Buddhism. So why did Buddha remove the Kingdom of India? Because the Emperor of India did not respect Buddhism. Buddha had already given up on it, considering that the Kingdom of India had been established for over 500 years, and that it was exactly 500 years ago that Buddha subdued Sun Wukong. Additionally, placing Sun Wukong under the 5 elements mountain near the Tang dynasty was clearly preparation for transmitting the teachings to the Tang. What would happen if the people of the Tang dynasty found out that even Buddha's neighboring country did not respect Buddhism? To avoid this, Buddha decided to keep the existence of that country hidden. After making some changes, the travel document listed Ling Mountain and the Tang dynasty, creating a seamless Buddhist connection from the east to the west. After the alteration, the travel document included both Ling Mountain and the Tang dynasty, forming a continuous Buddhist connection from east to west. Above is the analysis of the background behind the establishment of the fund. So, what challenges will this fund face? 2. Challenges faced by the fund's establishment. The issue of competition from industry rivals. We know that in Journey to the West, both Buddhism and Taoism use a crowdfunding model, making them natural competitors. In a limited market space, a zero-sum competition inevitably arises. According to Journey to the West, the highest powers were 5 in number, which were mentioned by the celestial maidens when Sun Wukong managed the peaches of immortality. These are the 5 elders of the 5 directions. In the east, the Holy Emperor Cheng, and the immortal from the 10 continents and 3 islands. In the west, the Buddha, Bodhisattva, Saint Monk, and Arhat. In the south, the Goddess of Mercy. In the north, the Northern Spirit. And in the center, the Great Yellow Emperor. Based on this distribution, the east, north, and central regions belong to Taoism and the Heavenly Court, while the west and south belong to Buddhism and the Western Paradise. The power of the Heavenly Court is greater, with 3 of the 5 elders belonging to them, meaning 3/5 of the world is theirs, whereas the Western Paradise has a smaller influence, with 2 of the 5 elders, meaning 2/5 of the world is theirs. In the power balance between Taoism and Buddhism, Taoism and the Heavenly Court have a slight advantage. Additionally, due to historical roots, the Eastern Tang dynasty, in the southern continent, is traditionally influenced by Taoism, with Buddhism being a later arrival and thus having less influence in this region. Therefore, for the Western Paradise to successfully spread the scriptures to the east and surpass others, they must consider the attitude of their competitor, the Heavenly Court, the issue of effective demand from the target market. The second challenge Buddha faces in establishing the scripture-seeking fund is the insufficient demand for Buddhist scriptures in his target market, the Tang dynasty. This may seem strange to some. At the time of the transmission of scriptures at the Ulampen assembly, Buddha stated that the southern continent was filled with greed, indulgence, violence, and strife, providing a vast market for the spread of Mahayana Buddhism. However, in reality, the Tang dynasty in the southern continent was in its golden age under Emperor Taizong, with the people living in peace and prosperity. Even the people in the Western Paradise hoped to be reborn in China in the future. The true land of greed and violence was actually the Western Bull's Head continent. The following year, Tongzheng entered this land, which was home to more than 95% of the demons and monsters, except for the General Yin and the Black Bear demon. Therefore, Buddha's reasoning for spreading the scriptures to the Tang dynasty does not hold up. In other words, the Tang dynasty lacked the demand for Mahayana Buddhism. Furthermore, even if there is a demand for Buddhist scriptures in the Eastern Tang dynasty, if the Western heaven were to proactively deliver the Tripitaka to Chang'an, the effect would probably be greatly diminished. The Tang dynasty might think that what is being delivered isn't really valuable. Who would deliver good things voluntarily? This is somewhat similar to the Qing army entering the pass. It's good if they can fight their way in, but it always seems a bit off, lacking legitimacy. The best way is for someone from the Ming dynasty to invite them in. Spreading the scriptures to the east also faced a challenge, namely that the Tang dynasty had long been resistant to Buddhism. As an imported religion, there was skepticism about its influence. In fact, when Emperor Taizong planned to invite high monks to meditate and worship, some officials, like Taishi Cheng Fuyi, wrote petitions to stop the construction of Buddhist temples, arguing that the crowdfunding model of Buddhism would disrupt the country's taxes and military resources, and that it was an invasive foreign ideology. Clearly, Mahayana Buddhism still faces a series of challenges in expanding into foreign markets, including insufficient demand, high entry barriers, and market acceptance. So how did the Western Paradise and Buddha solve these problems one by one?